Most people who are in HR have not made a decision to leave. You make up in your mind that you're going to be able to help your organization envision the future, help your organization have better skills at influencing one another, and then you're going to have the ability to actually drive outcomes and impact. We walk back to the systems, to those behaviors, those red light behaviors.
Yeah.
And we said, this is what's driving it. The people told us when we talked to them, because we had fired people. Well, what we did, we went back and we said, hey, here are the things we're going to change. You might have a car that can only do 80 miles and your organization needs to be 120. Most people look at, well, we can only do 80. No, forget about what you can do. Decide what you need to do. That's your vision.
Mm-hmm.
Then you work backwards to design, correct, get resources to get to that 100 miles per hour that you need with your organization. If you stay as a manager that's maintaining the 80, you're never going to get there. Leadership makes that jump. They don't think about what is possible today. They think about what possibility needs to be.
On this episode of Pulse by HRBench, I sat down with Dr. Tim Williams. Tim is a former P&G HR leader, an organizational psychologist, and a partner at the Organization Transformation Group. He started his career as an engineer, and it shows. Tim's entire premise is that the results your company gets were designed. The culture, the behavior, every outcome traces back to a system someone set up. We get into how HR leaders move from managing to leading, how culture is the real output of organizational design, a P&G safety story where rehiring fired workers turned the plant around, and why finance is not the gatekeeper to getting your programs funded. If you ever felt like HR work gets treated as soft, this one will change how you frame it. Let's get into this episode. I don't know if you consider yourself an engineer by trade or what have you, and then you got into HR, but like, how has that shaped your mindset moving into HR?
You know, for me, I think what being an engineer did for me is basically there's a science to everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's the first part of it. The other thing too is that engineers, we do things to get to a solution and have an answer or to have a result. Coming into HR in the company that I was in, it had the same mindset in HR. There were problems to solve, answers to be gotten, results to get. Most HR folk don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, know that it's sort of like results, they don't just come about. They have to be designed, right? To get what you want, there's a design, and so most HR folk don't approach HR that way. The company I came from, we did.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll talk about that in one of the topics, but every result of its design was the culture. It was like a 70s P&G thing, right? Where the organization had decided that operational design gave, I don't know, you probably know it by heart.
It was in the 80s and 90s when they actually implemented, they used the theory of OP model by Hannah, right? During that particular time. Actually, the principles of it have not changed, right?
Yeah.
There are other processes that other things that you can use, but what we people in my organization now, we're really familiar with the science of that. We've adapted it in many ways, but the principle of it is just true. And that's anything. That's anything that you're doing. If you see a result, there's some process that got you to that. So if you want to change it, just go back and look at your process, and you can make that shift. Good example. If you're standing outside in the rain and you're getting wet, you don't want to get wet.
Yeah.
Why are you getting wet? Right? Well, maybe you walked out there, didn't know it was going to rain. That's information. Maybe you walked out there and you knew it was going to rain, but you forgot your umbrella. Okay, that's equipment research. There's something you can ask why and get back to. Why am I standing here getting wet? Everything is like that.
Yeah, the weather one's always funny to me because so I lived in Germany for 4 years. And the Germans have a saying, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing choices.
Absolutely. Just bad decisions that you made. Okay, that's another one, decision making.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you actually decided to go out there. Okay. That probably wasn't a good decision. Okay. So it's a whole host of things that go into it. But the question is, why am I getting this result? Why is this happening to me right now? And anybody can penetrate that.
Yeah.
We just, and I'm in my organization transformation group, we just kind of like have expertise in helping companies get to the why.
Yeah, that's good. With that, Tim, is there anything else you would like before we kind of meander into our normal topics? Is there anything you would like the audience to know about you and your organization?
Well, if I think about it, we're a group of HR folk who at some point were either engineers or worked in operations or did the real work, if you want to say it like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we understand people from our clients' point of view, not just from a book point of view. We've actually done what they've done.
Yeah.
We manage businesses. So that gives us a language, that gives us a perspective of, hey, this problem that you're solving, I had it,
Yeah.
or I had something like that. So let's figure out how we go about doing it. But what we bring to the table is the HR knowledge. What we bring to the table is the capability knowledge that gives us the tools to be able to help them solve those issues.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you said that most of your team has an operational or engineering background. Was that by design for
Yeah, but
the problems you wanted to solve?
when me and my partner, L. Jones, when we started this, we kind of went out and kind of like recruited folk, okay,
Okay.
that were going to work with us, people we had worked with in the past. A lot of them from P&G, but other people who kind of like think about it like we do. And
Yeah.
so we didn't want people. Oh, there nothing wrong with people who just went to school for HR or either for org development. We kind of wanted people who had walked the walk.
Yeah.
Right. And actually when I go into an organization, no matter where it is, and I tell them, yeah, I'm an organization psychologist, but I have an engineering degree. Not only that, I have a business management degree. Okay. And I've
Yeah.
managed business within large corporations. You get credibility at a faster rate.
That's true because the one of the first topics we want to talk about is moving from administration to strategic, especially in HR. A lot of what happens in the organization or in organizations is how do you tie whatever you're doing, and it's not HR specific. I've done marketing and market's the same way. Like, how are you tying it to business outcomes?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of some of your current work, right? With Sherm, Georgia, is
Yep.
how to teach HR professionals to move from administrative to strategic. Like, what does that kind of look like in practice? And like, what are you talking to HR professionals about to make that
Yeah.
shift?
Leadership doesn't this whole thing about whether a leader is born or made. Okay. I mean, we always want to know,
Yeah.
I think it's both. Okay. And what I mean by that, you got people who are just have natural skills and abilities to be able to lead. Then you have people who may not have those natural skills and abilities, but you can help them understand what is the practice of actual leadership. One thing that I think both of those have to have in common, okay, is they have to decide to lead.
Hmm.
Okay. Most people who are in HR have not made a decision to lead. Okay.
Okay.
If you can make a decision that you're going to lead, meaning you're not going to just do administrative execution and whatever they throw over the wall, you pick it up and go do something with, but you're going to you make up in your mind that you're going to be able to help your organization envision the future, help
Okay.
your organization have better skills at influencing one another, outside customers, client, and then you're going to have the ability to actually drive outcomes and impact. Once you make that decision, you can lead. But if you never do that, and most HR folk, they don't see themselves doing that. They think that the people they work for do that. Okay. So they
Yeah.
have to just execute the task. No, you have to actually say to yourself, I'm a leader because I'm going to influence, I'm going to envision, I'm going to have impact. It gets to be that simple. So what we've been trying to do with HR folk is put them in an environment where they understand what leadership is, train them on that, and get them to have that conviction.
Yeah.
If I can get you to have that conviction, I can train you, develop you to be able to lead.
Yeah, and it's that's kind of taken the growth mindset, if you will, on it, because I usually take that where you can basically do anything you put your mind to, kind of a thing
Yeah, yeah,
within reason, right? I mean,
yeah.
obviously, I'm
Well, I know rationally it's within reason.
yeah,
Theoretically, inspirationally, you can do anything.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's okay. I'm probably not going to go out and swim, no 2 mile race and whatever. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm past that, right? But
Yeah,
if I wanted to, I could.
yeah,
It take a lot
exactly.
of work. So that's the mindset you have to have.
So then I guess if it's a attitude thing, or maybe you consider it an attitude, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but say I'm an HR leader and or an HR professional, it's like I want to lead and I've made that decision. Like, what is the next thing that I should start thinking about?
The next thing you need to start to think about is you got to transition your thinking and your skills and ability from managing to leading.
Okay.
They're two different things. Most HR people are managers,
Yeah.
which means we're handling the resources. We're in the midst of the day-to-day processes. We take whatever task execution and we go do. Okay. And we need managers. The reason they behave that way is because most of what they see, the people they work for are either accountable to, they're managers too. Most
Yeah.
most people out there that should be leading organization are managing organizations. They're not leading organizations. Okay, so if you're going to make that transition, you need to find out what leaders do, right? That's
Okay.
where you start to skill yourself, okay, and how you go about envisioning, influencing, and having impact.
And what do leaders do versus a manager?
What leaders do versus a manager manages resources,
Okay.
time, money, materials, plans, a schedule. Okay, they're about monitoring the task execution. What leaders do is that they envision the outcome of all of that. Right?
Okay.
They've got the big picture in mind. Okay, now not that they don't get to the details, but there's a path. They
Mhm.
envision it, and then they say to themselves, what is it going to take to get there? They don't look at the situation as it is. For instance, you might have a car that can only do 80 miles, and your organization, on a car analogy, needs to be 120.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, most people look at, well, we can only do 80. No, forget about what you can do. Decide what you need to do. That's your vision.
Mhm.
Then you work backwards to design, correct, get resources, whatever it is, to get to that 100 miles per hour that you need with your organization. But if you stay as a manager that's managing the maintaining the 80, you're never going to get there. Leadership makes that jump. They don't think about what is possible today. They think about what possibility needs to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they work towards that.
Interesting. We're not in this episode, we're not going to talk too much about AI, but I find that interesting, that analogy interesting because or not analogy per se, but what that can do. So currently, a lot of people are thinking AI just replacing what they're currently doing, not envisioning all of the
Yeah.
extra stuff that you could do to move an
Yeah.
organization to become different than what we're currently doing. Like it's
Absolutely.
it's this huge leap, and I'm not gonna say that it's easy,
No.
but because we just don't know. But like that seems like a very timely practice to start thinking about if you're, a manager or that is like thinking, what could the future state look like?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can't change a thing if you keep looking at it the way that it is. Right? You
Yeah.
got to have anything that changes. You got to have a thought that's different than the way it is, and that's what leaders bring to the table. And then they inspire people to bring that vision to fruition.
Yeah. Have you read the book? It's called Nine Lies at Work. I've
Mm.
probably mentioned it on this podcast many times because it was one of those books that my mentor shared with me, and I fell in love with it. And it's got all these things that we tell ourselves at work, and they, go through and disprove why they're lies. And one of them is leadership is a thing
Yeah.
at the end, and they detail all sorts of things about leaders and how they operate, and the inspiring people portion of it they spend some time on, and they take, some famous leaders, and they're like, well, a lot of leaders were polarizing. You don't have to be polarizing to be a leader, but they end up because they have a direct message and a point of view and all of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Super good book. I
Yeah.
highly
Yeah. Yeah.
recommend it.
Mhm.
But so I actually want to skip around a little bit because you mentioned your results are by design, if you will, kind of a thing. That seems to be kind of a theme. And when we're talking about this, you had said that organizational design was something that's that you're very interested in right now. And you asked me what I thought about it. And I said, org chart, span of control, managers, all of that. And you're like, no, 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 no. It's about the systems that you design for the results. That probably comes from the P&G mindset of you're getting the results because things are designed to do that. And I think that's kind of your stance on the HR. So I want to spend some time in like, how do you think of, or I guess in organizational design, how do you think about organizational design? Let's start there.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay.
And then go into like all the different stuff about how the listener should start thinking about organizational design outside of their scope, because I think a lot of it ties to the idea around business results.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me tell you how I understand organization.
Yeah.
Organization design produces culture. Okay. Culture are the behaviors of your people that produce results. You can have, there is an aspect of buildings and equipment and customers or either clients. You got all that, but all things being even, okay, then what you're trying to do is, unless you can, do it with robots at some point, maybe you can. What you're trying to do is get your people aligned to your vision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and behave in a way with the systems, processes, whatever it is, whatever resources to deliver that outcome, behave in a way that optimizes that. Okay,
Yeah.
so if I'm in a technical organization, then I want people who are technical in their thinking and their orientation. I don't want hospitality people in a technical organization.
Mm-hmm.
See, the culture doesn't support it. I need a culture that's technical in its approach. So when I think about organization design, then the critical item is culture, because culture defines behavior, system behavior, and that is what gets you results. So when I think about organization design, you back up, you say, hey, what results are we getting? Are these results consistent with what we envision for our organization? We need to deliver for our clients or for our customers, or either what we need to deliver to be competitive in our industry. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not, then we need to back off and figure out why we're getting those results. Well, the first place you look is the behavior of your people, right?
Yeah.
What's driving the behavior? What is the why for this result that we're getting? And you work yourself back to systems, processes, communication, whatever those issues are that actually are forming the behaviors that you have in your organization that deal with your results. Dealing with that is the design process.
Okay. And so for organizations that are starting to think about this, like where should they, or HR professionals, leaders are starting to think about this, like where should they start pulling threads to?
Well, if I were an HR leader, then that whole organization and everything that they put in place is to generate results.
Yeah.
I start with the results.
Okay.
What results are we getting? Not just what results are we getting, what outputs are we having, but what are the outputs that are inconsistent with where we want to be long term. Okay.
Okay.
Not just where we are today, but elevate yourself. We're here today, but today's results are the result of something that somebody made a decision about years ago.
Yeah.
Or sometime in our past. So if you want your future to be different, start thinking about your future now in some way. Did you ignore today's result? No, you got to be on that, because you're breathing based on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Whether you continue to breathe is whether you elevate yourself to a point where you're seeing the results of the future or the changes that need to be made of the results of today.
And I would probably
Does that make
argue.
sense to you? I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, you're having a healthy respect for where you're at today, the systems
Absolutely.
design. But right now, I would imagine, and it might just be because of the bubble I'm in, but with all of the changes in technology, organizational design,
Yep.
profitability, like all of that, people
Yep.
are more often thinking we need to shift. Our results need to be look different than they are today because there's a lot of different pressures right now. So this
Yeah.
is super timely in thinking, okay, we want our results to go or our outcomes to be XYZ. And so we need to start to look backwards. So it's a very timely discussion, I think, in
Absolutely.
thinking about your organizational design, because I mean, I've talked to HR professionals that are thinking about how they're putting AI agents into their organization and all of this for
And see,
various things.
and those are and most of that is about task execution today.
Yeah.
Okay. That is about, okay, how do we do better, quicker, faster? And that's what AI ought to do for you, what we're doing today.
Yeah.
So you get some productivity on the same task.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I'm just telling you, there's bigger jumps, there's bigger accomplishments if you envision where you want to be, okay, and then do everything in your processes of strategy and organization design to become that.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like this is a coaching session for myself as well, as much
Okay,
as the
I hope so.
audience. No, I really like that. So I guess in that vein, to give a concrete example of business outcomes and systems, you had mentioned the story about safety incident reports and restructuring all of that.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. So I want to take the concept of results, organizational design, working backwards, and put it into a concrete example of what
Absolutely.
you did. So can you walk
Absolutely.
us through what happened during reporting safety incidents and the different outcomes?
Absolutely. I was HR manager at our Brockville plant in
Yeah.
Brockville, Ontario, and we had our high performing organization, one of the best organizations in P&G at the time, and we were having terrible safety results. Right, people were getting hurt. We were at the point where all of our statistics says we were due for a fatality.
Hmm.
And so when we heard that, of course, we hopped to it, okay, to try to figure out, hey, how do we kind of like avoid this? And so one of the things that in our conversations that we learned from people, we had a red light behaviors is what we
Okay.
called them. That
Yeah.
if a person performed, didn't lock out, didn't report, didn't do something, they would immediately lose their job. Well, in the culture, in that Canadian culture, okay, they're not as, that culture is more forgiving and more social and more knitted together than, sometimes we are in the States. And so most people would see things and they wouldn't say anything because they didn't want people to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the strengths of a safety program is people report what is happening so we can change the behaviors. Well, they weren't reporting and our results were going totally out of whack. Well, when we found that out, we walked back to the systems, to those behaviors, those red light behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay. And we said, this is what's driving it. The people told us when we talked to them. So I'm not going to tell you that I didn't see Joe lock out or I didn't see, because I don't want Joe to lose his job because we had fired people. Well,
Yeah.
what we did, we actually went back and we said, hey, here are the things we're going to change. Okay. We took those rules out. We did some things around making sure people had the ability to share things with us without consequence. Matter of fact, one of the things that we did is that we actually went back to people we had terminated
Hmm.
based on that rule and re-offered them their job.
Nice.
Okay. That was our commitment to prove, you know what? We know this is wrong. We're not going to do that anymore. Man, within a matter of months, we saw our safety results begin to change. Within, I think, of probably about a year, 18 months, we were back in the top in our safety performance and results across Procter and Gamble. So again, that is just what happened. Why is this happening? Well, we were uniquely designed to get those poor safety results. We came back and changed the design. The design changed, people's behavior changed or culture changed, and
Yeah.
then our results became something different.
What do you think is about the systems that drive like that culture behavior? Like, what is it that causes that? And because I mean, that's a huge result. Like, I mean, going from if you don't report it, the policy is you get fired, and so people don't report because they have that. Like, what is it about us? Because you're also a psychologist. So, like, what is it about the systems that cause us to do things like that?
Because people do what they value, okay? Or they don't do, okay, what is not going to give them value. All right.
Yeah.
So they're not going to report if there's no value to them to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. If they think people going to lose their job, they don't see that as valuable. Right. Basic principle with people. We do what is helpful. We're selfish. We're basically selfish people.
Yeah.
So behaviors are driven. Why you brush your teeth this morning? Right. You didn't brush your teeth, believe it or not, for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? You brush your teeth for you. I mean, that's kind of gross, but there, you
Yeah.
see my point. We do things for ourselves, even if we're doing it for others. We say it's for others. We're actually doing it for ourselves.
Yeah. That's a good call out. So I do want to shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about, so you're an HR professional, you're making the change to leadership, you're thinking about organizational design, looking at the future state, and now you want to start implementing your programs, and you need to request budget, you need to get buy-in from either your CHRO, or if you are the CHRO, your CEO. And a lot of HR folks that I talk to default to, okay, I need to build a relationship with finance in order to secure budget. And you have a little bit of a contrarian take on that.
Yeah. Well, go on. I'm just going to let you finish.
Oh, I was just going to say, what is your opinion if you're looking to get your programs funded? Where should you start thinking about going?
Well, and maybe I don't have exposure to organizations where finance is in control.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Well, I kind of think about finance like this. Legitimately, they're like regulators to me. They're the ones that, hey, hold us accountable to the numbers.
Hmm.
Okay. Account for the numbers.
Yeah.
All right. And then define what kind of resources we have available to do what we have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. But who decides what we're going to do? They're decision makers that make that decision.
Yeah.
Okay. True enough, there's somebody else who's going to decide where we're going to spend the money that finance is accounting for. All right. And they have the greatest influence around making decisions about where that money is going to be spent, not finance. Right. To me, we've kind of made finance the god. Money should not drive vision. True enough, you got to have money to make vision happen. And so
Yeah.
there are limitations based on the funds that you have. But the vision is the vision.
Yeah.
Right. And the people who are making decisions about the vision are the ones who are going to make decisions about the strategy, the tactics. If you want to get down to HR, the programs that are going to support where they want to take the organization.
And often it's been my experience that even if you have that gatekeeper, companies seem to always find money for things they start to believe in that are going to move the needle or get the
Well,
outcome they want.
they do. And the reason that's so is because now it's gone, that money is going from an expense to an
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah.
Right. All right. They see something, you know what? If we put money right there, we're confident it's going to spit money back to us. It's no longer a waste or either, something that we just got to spend and it's gone. It's going to make us money, of course. And being able, and there goes the influence piece at HR. You got to be able to influence people to say that what you're about is going to do that for you.
Yeah. So then when you think about talking to different decision makers, who are you envisioning? So if I'm an HR professional, like, who should I start to think about or see as, like, who are the decision makers in the organization, or who should I start building relationships with?
Well, I think C-suite to HR leader at a plant somewhere. Okay,
Yeah.
you know the people that you serve, right? You know the people that you serve. You know the people who you're producing for. You know the people who are counting on you, right? That are in
Yeah.
operations or in leadership. That's where I would start. Okay,
Okay.
I begin to build a relationship with the people that are counting on me.
Okay.
Okay, and I begin to get into and help them to see that I'm not just a person that's going to accomplish a task.
Hmm.
I'm a person that you can relate to
Yeah.
help you solve your problems from a people standpoint. Okay. And that means having some level of ownership for relationship and some level of ownership for understanding the outputs of results of the organization. And a lot of times that's where HR people fail.
Is the outputs of the organization.
Yeah, they've never been in operations.
Yeah.
They've only worked for people who are in operation. Okay. And so to really understand it, you gotta I think you have to feel the pain of being in operations and having an issue that's causing your results to be off
Yeah.
to really be able to have a perspective to really help.
Do you think it's difficult in the HR function? Because oftentimes, and I think sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's not, that HR metrics are soft. Like, do you think that causes it to be more difficult to then own hard results that go off? I mean, obviously, when you're talking operations, there are very concrete things that go, like product doesn't go out or all of
Yeah.
that. I think you can probably operationalize a lot of different things, even if it's not at that level. Do you
Well,
maybe?
for me, when I was in HR, okay, the bottom line results was my results.
Yeah.
Okay. Productivity was my results. Okay. Attrition, I own that. Even if
Yeah.
people were leaving because of these not so good managers,
Mhm.
okay, I still own it because I felt I owned the behavior and leadership capability of the managers or the leaders. See, so
Yeah.
I could actually tie my HR performance to outputs that my leaders cared about. Okay. They
Yeah.
cared about those things. And they fall into just small categories: productivity, the cost of attrition, that's huge. Organization performance numbers. You could do your organization surveys that give you input and give you numbers around how people are feeling about their employment. All of that are numbers that you could tie to results.
And they do tie to results. Like, it once you start to think about it from that, it no longer becomes like the HR metrics are soft is no longer a valid argument because those are
Well,
dollars and cents.
actually, because what we think it's almost like, because we're dealing with people,
Yeah.
that it's a variable. It's just how they feel,
Yeah.
right? No, 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 no. It's not how they feel. It's how they perform. It's
Yeah.
how they are behaving. If you can get to how they're behaving, okay, the feeling, you throw that away. Okay. Now there may be a feeling that driving the behavior, and that's fine. You got to find that out, but you get to the behavior.
Yeah. Okay. That is all really good. I want to be respectful of time here, but so Tim, is there anything else you would like to kind of leave the audience with and how they should start to think about moving from becoming a leader, organizational design, how to build relationships with decision makers
Yeah.
we didn't
You
cover?
know, I think the biggest thing, one of the things that I work with my clients, my coaching clients, people that I coach, is being who they are. Okay. When you say you're going to be a leader, when you say you're going to have this kind of impact, when you say you're going to elevate your game. Okay.
Hmm.
You're not trying to be anybody else.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Okay. Take advantage of your strengths. Understand what they are. Understand what your opportunities are. Understand those opportunities that you want to do something with and those that you don't. Okay. Because actually being clear about what you don't want to work on is very valuable because it saves your time. Okay.
Yeah.
So actually begin to look within yourself, make the decision about, I'm going to be a leader. Make the decisions and think about what capability you need to be able to actually go deliver that. Either get the capability on your own, okay, because today you can almost develop anything that you want, okay, and then form a vision for yourself and work
Yeah.
on that. Begin to work on that to get to be the kind of leader that you want to be. I tell my coaching clients, you have to determine who you are first, your be. Then work on why you are not that, which is dealing with your become. And then at the point where you nail all of that, then you could take action to actually being that person. And that's the approach I think I would suggest for any leader that's trying to make any kind of transition.
Yeah, I really like that, and I like the, be yourself and, figure out what you don't want to do. That's so difficult early in your career and in your
Absolutely.
development is
Yeah,
saying
because you think
saying
you're
the
supposed to
no.
do everything, right? But a
Exactly.
hammer, a hammer can't, a hammer can't screw nail. I mean, can't screw screws, and you ought to
Yeah.
be okay with that, right? The hammer has
Yep.
to be okay with that, right? And we're to a certain extent the same way.
Yeah. That's good. Well, great, Tim. I appreciate the time. Where would you like listeners to connect with you, to, come learn more about, the organization transformation group, all of the above?
Yeah, yeah. You can actually go to our website. It's orgtransformgroup.com. Okay. You can go to my bio on LinkedIn and you can get a phone number if you want to call me. I'm open anyway to help, support, to talk, to chat. I'm okay with, some people have called me up and say, I know you don't know me, but I saw this. Can we talk a few minutes? Of course, I'll talk with you. I'll be helpful in any way that I can.
Awesome. That's really great. And if you're in the Georgia area, you're also working with SHRM Georgia, right?
Yeah, we've been okay. Partners with SHRM Georgia, helping them increase their leadership capability within their membership for the last 3 years.
Awesome. Well, great, Tim. I appreciate the time and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Pulse, the podcast that has real conversations with HR leaders linking people to performance. HRBench is the people analytics platform that turns HR data into business strategy. It connects to all your tools, HRIS, ATS, payroll, surveys, whatever you're using. In just a few clicks, you get over 45 metrics instantly visualized in boardroom-ready dashboards, benchmarked by industry and company size. Book a demo at HRBench.com and we'll build you a custom benchmark report using your data.